What are we gonna do when we get back?
What are we gonna do when we get back?
I take a shower and hit the rack.
Take a shower and hit the rack.
Welcome to Charlie Mike. If you're a combat veteran with an entrepreneurial bug and want to know what highly successful combat veteranpreneurs are doing to transform their sacrifice and experience to create their visual reality, then this is dedicated to your inspiring and fulfilling future. And now your host, Dwayne Paro.
No way, gotta run, feet, lots of fun.
Invest in Yourself ebook is my free gift to you for listening to the show and becoming part of the CO Nation. To receive your free gift, please go to landmarklifecoaching.com. Thank you for joining us on this episode. There are so many veterans with the core strengths to become successful entrepreneurs and continue to make a huge positive impact on our country. Here we highlight the amazing successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Combat veterans, for the purpose of this show, are soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who have served the United States in wars, campaigns, and in theater on foreign soil or hostile waters. Our guest today is Jon Taylor. Jon Taylor is a U.S. Navy veteran and the founder of MrQuickPick USA, a national brand for roadside assistance entrepreneurs. Jon joined the Navy in 1988 and would spend the majority of his enlistment assigned to the aircraft carrier USS FORRESTAL, CV-59, during Persian Gulf War operations Desert Storm and Provide Comfort. Honorably discharged in 1993, he would return to Kentucky and study communications at the University of Louisville. In 2006, he started Pick Lockout Service and soon expanded operations to Virginia Beach, Virginia, where QuickPick would win the AAA Members' Choice Award for 3 consecutive years in 2010, 2011, and 2012. After successfully testing his business model in multiple locations, Jon began licensing the MrQuickPick Lock and Road Services brand, now being used by dozens of roadside assistance entrepreneurs all across the country. As well, he published his first book, Breaking into Cars for a Living, in 2013. All right, Jon, welcome to the show, and thank you for being a guest.
Hey, Dwayne, thanks for having me. Appreciate all you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited to have you tell our loyal listeners all about your journey from a combat veteran to a successful entrepreneur. Before we get into your entrepreneurial experience, can you give our listeners a little bit more overview of your military experience?
Yeah, I was a machinist mate on board the USS FORRESTAL, as you mentioned. My big job was turning 100,000 gallons of salt water a day into fresh water. I worked down in one auxiliary machinery room. We were stationed in Mayport, Florida, Pensacola, Florida. We took over for the Lexington as a training carrier. And finally, we decommissioned in Philadelphia in 1993, which is the year that I was honorably discharged.
Wow, yeah, I've always wondered what it was like to be on a ship for any amount of time. Was that quite an adjustment once you because it's not like our normal way of living, in being out in a large ocean like that. What was that like?
You have a lot of time to think. Don't get me wrong, we're working 12, 16-hour days most of the time. They keep you busy, which is good. But, you lay in your rack, 6 months, you're at sea, and you're thinking, you're solving all the world's problems. At least that's what I was doing. I was coming up with, I wrote a letter, in fact, to President Bush at the time and said, we could take some of these decommissioned aircraft carriers and create distilling plants in some of these impoverished countries. He's received a letter back from his office thanking me for my suggestion. You just come up, you think really deeply. At least that's what I did with this entrepreneurial mind. Probably drives you crazy at times, but a lot of time to think, a lot of time to work, and to a lot of teamwork, which is important to working with your shipmates.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make about spending that time to, come up with these entrepreneurial, innovative ideas, because a lot of people don't take time to do that stuff, and you're trying to provide an opportunity to leverage what the military is already invested in. And so as an entrepreneur, that's like key to being able to grow your business. Okay, we've rolled out product X. Now we need to make that more innovative and more useful to our client, or expand into a new market. So there was a clear sign that you were meant to be an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah, and you're right. When you have time, make time. I mean, it's almost a blessing in disguise to be on an aircraft carrier for 6 months, and you have nothing but time often, where you can get deep in your thoughts and your creative juices flow. And now it's more important than ever to make that time. That was back in the 90s. How many times has technology advanced over and over and over just in that short period of time? You really do have to set aside some time to think things out and let those juices flow.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I've had a few conversations with different veterans, and I think back I was in from 91 to 99, and I was deployed in 94 on Operation Southern Watch in Saudi Arabia, and we had literally no technology. It was crazy. I mean, you waited in line to make a 5-minute telephone call where you're dialing back on a calling card. And now people are sitting there on email and whatever, Skyping, whatever they can get access to. It's got to be a world different, because then you can leverage that technology as well to keep yourself occupied. And if you're have these entrepreneurial desires, you can spend that time productively when you do have downtime.
Oh yeah, and I don't even think, do they even have mail call anymore? Really?
Probably not.
I wouldn't see where they would, and
yeah,
that was good times. You look forward to that. But
absolutely, that was your highlight of the day, the week, whatever it came in, except
the month,
you didn't
right?
Get anything. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, so this is a good segue into your business that you created. Very impressive that it has been branded to the extent that is that it. I'm trying to think of what the right word is. It now a, why am I drawing a blank?
Franchise.
Franchise. Thank you. Is that what it would be classified as, or I'll let you tell our listeners about it, how you got started.
Yeah, it's not officially a franchise. It's intellectual property licensing, the brand. And I looked into franchising. I looked into buying a franchise when I got out of the Navy, and it was out of my price range. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, that's really something I would like to do. I could do if I had the resources, and I didn't. So like a good entrepreneur, I bootstrapped my own company, really got it off the ground for, a few $1,000s, where it was making money pretty quickly, enough to sustain, and got it to the point where I wanted to grow. I wanted to grow, bringing on other people to do the work and grow to different areas, which I did. But this type of business in particular doesn't really pay enough or generate enough revenue to pay these guys well enough for what they're doing. It's roadside assistance, light duty roadside assistance, tire changes, jump starts, gas delivery, and car unlocking. And the better way to do this, I decided, was let's make everybody a business owner. No one cares more about the job, the customer service than a business owner. So I turned it around. I said, I'm going to show everyone how to do this. I'm creating my own competition, mind you. I'm going to show others how to do this the way I'm doing it and winning awards from AAA, et cetera, and let them buy into the value of a brand, a national brand name, that, unlike an expensive franchise like I had looked at, I'm basically going to give it away. That's how I got started on this. It's intellectual property licensing. I had a business attorney put together an agreement form, and for a low monthly royalty fee, we're all branding together under the same name and growing this thing nationally. The internet, the timing has been great. As the phone books were disappearing and becoming less valuable, the internet's taking off, and we all know Google likes 1,000 of anything more than one mom and pop. So 1,000 MrQuickPicks across the country are going to get a higher, algorithm rating, or SEO, if you will. than just the mom and pop. So it's really taken off from there. The timing was good. The ideas worked well, and everybody wins.
Yeah, how did you pick the industry that you went into with, like you said, light roadside assistance? Because obviously that doesn't necessarily relate to what you did in the military.
No. The military, as we know, is all about teamwork, attention to detail, strong work ethic. Those were things, when I got out of the Navy, for instance, I worked for Marriott. I started off as the maintenance guy, plunging the toilets and running around changing light bulbs, and wherever there's a fire, I'm putting it out. I also used my GI Bill. I got out with a disability, so I was able to use those benefits to go to school. I got my bachelor's from U of L. By the time I had graduated, I had become manager of that hotel, the general manager. And yeah, within 8 years, moved up to the top position, and it was great. But now I'm working, 50, 60 hours a week. They are benefiting from all that the Navy gave me in terms of teamwork and that leadership, attention to detail. I decided I can do something on my own to benefit Jon. And of course, in the hotel business, you often come in, there's people waiting for a jump start, their cars, keys are locked in the car, need a tire change. Sometimes they'd wait hours. And as a good general manager for Marriott, I'm out there changing the tire. I'm out there jump starting a car.
Right. Yeah.
And it just, here again, the flow, it was a nice flow to where I said, I can do this. I mean, I can do this with integrity, with that attention to detail, and really grow something. It's very low startup. We can get into all that later, but it was a perfect fit. These guys are working from home with a few $100s worth of tools in their cell phone. Yeah. And making good money because they're a business owner. So that's kind of long story short, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's great information because, we got a lot of veterans, and one of their big struggles in transition that I always hear is I don't know how to translate my skills. And so they really feel like because they did 4 years, 10 years, whatever in the military under a particular job classification that has to be their future when really right. They can take what you did and you pivoted with taking an opportunity that you saw and said, you know what, I can jump out and be the one to take this type of problem on and provide a service. And so that is a great example of
exactly.
what veterans can do, and they're adaptable and they have a lot of flexibility. And they're dependable. And then, you were saying about the integrity and teamwork. I mean, those are all core strengths of every veteran. And so this is a great example of being able to take those core strengths and leverage them and not worry about translating skills and writing the perfect resume.
Exactly.
It's not even necessarily reinventing yourself, because some feel like, well, if I don't do what I did in the military, then I'm going to have to reinvent myself. Not really. You don't lose who you are. Don't lose your core strengths, and don't lose those skills you gained. Pivot with them and figure out where there's a gap in an industry and fill it.
Exactly. I joked with somebody recently that was inquiring about the business, and I said he wanted to know my background. I said I did not grow up telling everyone I want to change tires for a living. That never came out of my mouth, quite honestly, Dwayne.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about that. It was about running my own business. It was about creating a business, but at least running my own business. I knew I had the intelligence to do it. I knew I had the ethic, the work ethic and integrity. And you've got leaps and bounds over a lot of your competition right there. Not to bust on anyone, but that military bearing Absolutely. Is all about entrepreneurship, in my opinion. And we have a lot of veterans right now that are successful business owners. This is not my business. It's my brand, but it's not my business. And really, it's our brand. We're all growing it together across the country. But bottom line is these are all business owners, not contractors. They're making all the money, and they're keeping all the money. They're paying a monthly royalty fee. That's it.
Yeah, I think that the setup that you have structurally is very intriguing to veterans who are getting out, and they don't have a bankroll, but they've got some money. They're not, I don't want veterans to ever be portrayed as this helpless group of people, because they're not. They're some of the best people we have in this country, and so being able to get in at a much lower cost and help build a brand. I mean, that sounds like the military, right? You got in and, the Army was the Army, the Navy was the Navy before you got there. but you helped by being there to build that brand and support that organization.
Exactly. And at the end of it all, we're all the same. We're all in uniform. We're all working for the same bottom line, the same cause. And it's a great, like I said, it works for everyone. It's working for the customer. They're getting a person like the military veteran with the integrity and the discipline, the attention to detail. It's working for these business owners, these veterans that own their own business. They're making more money than giving it away to, exorbitant fees and costs. And it's working for us. These great people are growing a brand that we are going to take to much higher levels. I met with Congressman Jeff Miller in Fort Walton Beach recently, and just sharing this vision, this mission that we're on to make this available to veterans across the country, including disabled vets. I mean, if I can shake your hands and all, unlock cars and change tires, a lot of people can do it that might not think they can. It's not difficult work. It's about making the phone ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is great, and pushing for that as well to get that communication out there so that people know, so they can not just so you can have more people in your network, but so you can get people out there and being successful. That is absolutely a great way to grow and give back to the veteran community.
Yeah. And that's why we call everyone entrepreneurs. These are not roadside assistance guys or mechanics or contractors. These are roadside assistance entrepreneurs. That's what they are. It's on the back of their shirts.
Right, yeah.
And business owners, yeah.
Right, yeah, awesome. All right, listeners, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I want to hear all about Jon's book that he wrote, Breaking Into Cars for a Living. Very intriguing title. And so when we come back, we'll get right into that. Landmark Life Coaching's vision is to be the nation's premier coaching partner for inspiring and empowering those in transition. They partner with courageous groundbreakers and transitioning veterans to create fulfilling and empowering futures that they desire. They have partnered with various entrepreneurs and transitioning veterans to leverage their core strengths and implement the framework for the future they always dreamed of. Could you or anyone you know benefit from a success partner to bring clarity to your future or their future? If so, please check out landmarklifecoaching.com for more information and charliemikepodcast.com for the Charlie Mike Podcast, showcasing the successes of combat veteranpreneurs. All right, listeners, we are back with Jon Taylor, the founder of MrQuickPick USA. Before I went to break, I had mentioned that he has written a book called Breaking Into Cars for a Living. So obviously the title has grabbed my attention. So I'd like to know a little more about what this book is about and go from there.
Well, as you mentioned, it was all about grabbing attention. It also grabbed the attention of my parents, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And while they get the gist of the book, which is totally about the business and starting one and what it requires, yeah, as dads in the ministry, et cetera, we kind of changed it to Mr. Quick Pick's 1, 2, 3 business plan to unlocking cars for profit, which you can get a copy of free on our website. It's also available on Amazon. But yeah, it's a book that I get so many calls and I can talk to everyone for an hour. In fact, I vet everyone personally. No one just signs up online. It has to be a good fit for both of us. We have the Better Business Bureau A+, and we're going to keep it. That's one of our biggest selling points is that, here again, that integrity. But the book was written to at least take 30 minutes off of that conversation where someone can go right online, get a free copy, and go through a little bit of the history of the company. I go right to the tools that are required with the costs, talk a little bit about the auto clubs. We do provide services for about a dozen or more of these major auto clubs that will call you and say, hey, we've got a jump start around the corner. What kind of ETA can you give us? That kind of thing. Just goes through the branding, the benefits of branding versus doing this on your own. And we're not twisting anyone's arm. You know what? This is America. If you want to start your own roadside business, go for it. But there is benefit, especially now. We mentioned the phone books. Or who uses phone books anymore? I mean, I don't even know where one is anymore. And I used to spend a lot of money on phone book ads. You can spend $1,200 a month on a full color page ad. And nobody's doing that anymore. It's all about online search, and Google's the king. We all know that. And like we say, Google likes 100 of anything better than one of something when it comes to the search algorithm. So SEO, that pretty much is what it takes you through.
No, that's great, because, people want to know, it keeps the looky-loos, away, that, they call you and then they spend an hour of your time, and they more than likely weren't really going to be going down the road, but they were intrigued by it. And so this at least gives them a glimpse into what it's all about, so that they can, understand it, and you can only get the serious,
exactly.
inquiries. Yeah. So
and the competition calls every now and then. I know who you are. I can figure you out. So.
Yeah, testing the waters. Yeah. Interesting. So I'd like to, at this point, go into what I call our In the Zone segment. This is where we talk about, when we all love when we hit that sweet spot, or get that feeling that we are doing what we are meant to do, or are where we are meant to be. So let me ask you, John, what was that point where you knew being an entrepreneur was meant for you?
Wow, I can go way back to Virginia Beach, growing up in the 70s, and my buddy Ricky and I, we probably weren't 11, 12 years old, knocking on doors, mowing yards for $10 a piece, and clearing half the neighborhood, and walking up to 7-Eleven to play Elton John pinball with 50, 60 bucks in our pockets each. That was the start of just knowing that there are things you can do on your own, and the sky's the limit. It really is. I mean, other ideas like the example with writing the letter to President Bush, your juices are always flowing. And I've had, I could probably list you at least 20 businesses that came and went. I can show you business cards that never got handed out in the bottom of a drawer somewhere that were a good idea at the time. I still have a few things on the back burner that I think will be a good idea once, but I have to focus. I went to an accelerator. We were actually invited to a veteran-owned business accelerator in Fort Walton Beach in 2015, the end of 2015. 12 weeks of Shark Tank. It was great. And they chose us, seven companies out of the whole country. We were one of the ones chosen. And they told me, focus. That was the first thing they told me week one. You can't be all over the place with your ideas. So, like I probably am in this seg. But anyway.
No, that's good. Because,
that's
entrepreneurs need to see that's actually a characteristic of an entrepreneur. You're always thinking, you're always, trying to find that next great adventure. But you're right, when you have one, as long as you focus on the efforts of that one, you will be successful. And a common theme I do hear when I ask guests this question is probably 95% say, it started when I was young, and I totally resonate with that. When my friends, I played sports, but it wasn't my passion, and I did it to hang out with my buddies, basically. And what I really preferred to do was to have my own gigs on the side. We lived on a lake, and so over half of the residents were summer residents. They didn't live there full time, and so I was cutting wood year round. I was mowing lawns, you name it. I was the guy, and I was doing it cheap, and so everybody wanted me, and I never lacked for an opportunity. And so absolutely. And then I think it's ironic how a lot of us end up going in the military. And we support our country, and I think it's just that drive to want to support something greater than us before we get so focused on those dreams that we have of building and growing a business.
It really is, and that serving at heart, that doesn't just come and go. And I have so many guys that are with us now, and ladies. Don't leave the ladies out. We do have women business owners that are MrQuickPicks. One wanted to call it Ms. Quick Pick. But anyway, that drive does not to serve people. I get more people that say, I just like helping people. I've had guys tell me I would do this for free. I have done this for free. You see someone on the side of the road, you have the ability to do it. You just want to help someone. And it's a good feeling. And that's how most of these are, which is a great feeling.
Yeah, I can say there is a huge industry and market for what you guys are doing, and I applaud you. It's funny, I haven't broken down often or needed a tire changed, and it's ironic that we're doing this conversation because right around the holidays, I was on the Beltway in D.C., and of course, it's if we can hit each other, we do it. And so there was an accident, and we drove by it, think nothing of it. They happen all the time. I get down the road, my sensor comes on, says low tire pressure. I'm like, that's odd, because I literally had just checked my tire pressure before I left the house. And I don't do that often, but I was like, you know what, it's been a while, let me do it. So we plugged through traffic, we got up, and I'm like, I'm really kind of nervous what this means. Let me get off at this exit, and we'll get on the back road at least, because it was still congested. I pulled over, I'm like almost riding on my rim.
Oh.
And so then I'm like, okay, I get out the scissor jack thing on an F-150. I'm like, why is this even on here? And so my wife's on the phone trying to find somebody. I'm like, oh, we're an hour and a half away, and we're like in a populated area. And then finally there's a guy pumping gas that had, some mercy for me, and he came over and said, hey, I got a jack. And so we got it done. But I'm like, there's been only the couple times I've ever needed somebody in a heavily populated area, and nobody's available. So now I know who to call.
Well, that may have been Mr. QuickPick that helped you out. You might not have known.
Exactly.
And by saying all that, you probably just jinxed yourself into a car unlock here in the next week or so.
I know. Yeah, I would not doubt it. So. All right. So what are some tools or resources you used when you were starting your business that you found that were like just critical to your success that you think other entrepreneurs should know about?
Back in the day before the internet, I was getting the Business Opportunities magazine, that kind of thing. And now that there are so many resources available, and I'm on all of them. I was joking with my brother just recently about how any new technology that came out, I was getting the username Mr. QuickPick, even with Skype and Instagram. Anything that I could get the Mr. QuickPick username, I did. There's so much out there, but at the same time, focus. You can spend a lot of time on a lot of dead ends, and LinkedIn has been very good. Facebook is great. I mean, we're doing video views for a penny a view. Still Google Plus and YouTube are very valuable resources. But you know what I did, Dwayne? When I go through the grocery store, I still stop in the magazine aisle and I'll look at a copy of Business Opportunities magazine, because you just never know. You don't want to ever close down what could be a important venue. So just don't spread yourself too thin, though. That's my advice.
Yeah, that's some great information, because I even myself, as I go to start up a new program or add something to my coaching practice, I have found a lot of trouble with locking down domain names, locking down that same name and putting it in, like you said, to the various social media channels. So the sooner you can do that to capitalize on that, the better. Because,
right.
People are squatting on names, even if you're like, I searched all over and I couldn't find this name on anything. But yet when I search to try to get a domain name, yep, that's taken. Yep, that's taken. I'm like,
well, you bring up a very good point, too. My original company was QuickPick Lockout. The lockout limited us from doing roadside assistance. You go to change a tire, and they're like, we didn't ask for a locksmith. Okay, that's not going to work. QuickPick. Well, if you Google QuickPick, you're going to find dental devices, lottery, meanings. It's important. What you brought up is very important. I went right to the USPTO, Patent Trade Office website. And there was no Mr. QuickPick, nothing Mr. QuickPick. And that's when I added the MR and said, you know what? Not only am I going to grab, like we just talked about, all the usernames, domain names, I'm going to register this as a trademark. And I did that. I mean, that's very important before you can spend thousands and waste thousands of dollars of resources because you didn't do your homework. And let's back up to what you asked me a minute ago. That's where you start. If you're going to start a brand or a business, make sure you're not treading on someone else's name, even if it's not still in use. Get a business attorney. Big time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I agree. I've made mistakes in that area, and you really need to have an attorney to help you vet those things, because you can do an endless number of searches and still not come back with stuff, and then think, all right, I'm clear, and then you go to, like you said, you go to file something, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's already been.
That'll make your stomach drop out.
Yeah.
Your business attorney and your CPA, as an entrepreneur, those should be two of your best friends.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, John. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. As we're running out of time here, I'd like to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know how they can get in contact with you or learn more about your business.
Sure, MrQuickPick.com. And we were just talking about domains. You can spell it any way you'd like, but it's MrQuickPick.com. You can Google us, pull us up on YouTube, get a copy of you can download a PDF copy of our book for free right from the website. We do sell them on Amazon, but hey, save yourself $3.99. Why not? Unless you want a hard copy. You can get the Breaking Into Cars for a Living. I think that's a classic now on Amazon. But no, reach out to me. All my contact information is there as well. John@MrQuickPick.com is my email. And I don't think you'll have a hard time finding us. Roadside Assistance Entrepreneurs. You can even get a hat from us. How's that?
Okay. All right. Well, great. Thank you again for being on the show, and most importantly, thank you for your service to our country.
Well, thank you too, Dwayne. Thanks for having me, and God bless.
Remember, loyal listeners, we are the home of the free because of the brave.
Thank you for tuning in to Charlie Mike Podcast with Dwayne Paro. Our objective is to bring successful veteranpreneurs to help inspire and provide insight into what helped them become successful, with the hopes you can take away various strategies you can implement in your entrepreneurial journey. Visit us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hoorah!